The one question that atheists hate being asked is for evidence of the claims that they make. And atheists will say something like, you have no evidence for God's existence. Or they will say something like, God doesn't even exist, or Jesus is not actually God, or Jesus did not actually die on the cross, or the Bible was actually just made up. And when you ask them the simple question, they buckle under everything that they just claimed and oftentimes will backslide in their atheism. Why do you believe? What evidence do you have that there is not a real version of the Bible, or that the Bible is not real, or that the Bible has been made with errors in it, or something like that? And when you ask most atheists, now I'm not saying all atheists, but most atheists this one single question, it is enough to make them backslide in their faith in atheism. And the reason for this is because many people have watched one short YouTube video similar to this or something that gives no maybe real evidential claims, which I'm going to do in a second, so chill. But they just go off of one video that just says, oh, well, Christians don't even have any belief in God, or proof for their belief in God. And a lot of them are right, that a lot of Christians, they don't have any evidence of why they believe that God is real. It is not a blind faith like a lot of them will say, or even like a lot of Christians will say, unfortunately. Hey, Christians, by the way, stop saying it's a blind faith. It's not a blind faith. It's faith, which means that you're trusting in something that you don't physically have 100% factual evidence in, because if that was the case, then it's not faith anymore, it's just fact. But no. Just to say that we don't have any evidence of the beliefs or the claims that we're making is really, really silly. Matter of fact, we have more evidence for our claims than you all do of your own claims. Here is the benefit, though, that atheists have over Christians. Christians have a guidebook on standards that they have to go off of. Now, thankfully, we have the benefit of it actually being right, but atheists don't have this. So whenever something changes, they can always say that their new belief on science, on history, on different philosophical standards or whatever, change. And they can always wiggle in and out of those things, so they don't have any standard to live up to, so they're always allowed to change. And here's the last point that I think is kind of ironic on this aspect of it. Atheists will say that I know that God does not exist. But the irony is oftentimes when you ask that same atheist, do you believe in absolute truth? They will tell you no, there's no such thing as absolute truth. Yet they know that God doesn't exist. Because atheism means that you know that God doesn't exist. Right? I'm paraphrasing the definition of atheism, but it's saying that God does not exist. Okay, and most people will say that it's not a belief in the lack of God's existence, but it's saying that you know that God doesn't exist. Okay, well, if you know God doesn't exist, then that would be an absolute truth claim that you're making, right? And then we can even go jump further in regards to them saying that the God of the Bible is immoral. Again, if there's no absolute truth, then God can't be immoral. You can disagree with his morality, but he can't be immoral because there's no such thing as immoral in an atheist's mind. So for you who are a Christian or somebody who's just listening to this video in context of atheism, keep in mind that they don't think things like rape, pedophilia, human trafficking are wrong. They can say in their view it's wrong, but they can't say it's wrong, because wrong is a standard of absolute truth. It's saying that you know for a fact in all circumstances always that something like pedophilia or rape is wrong. And an atheist can't say that because they don't believe in any sort of standard of absolute truth, because there's no absolute standard to something when there's not a standard giver. So oftentimes people will say back to me, well, Cody, you are the one who has the burden of proof made. And that's a really, really silly statement because, first of all, I don't want to argue back and forth on who has the burden of proof. But it's obviously the atheist that has the burden of proof, because I don't have the burden of proof on a painter needing a painting or on a building needing a builder. But for some reason, atheists say, well, this whole sort of logical fallacy doesn't work when we're talking about creation, because now all of a sudden everything changes when we're talking about creation needing a creator. We don't need to know or see the builder or a painter to know that the painting or building was built by a builder and painting by a painter. The actual building or painting is evidence of those things. And this is obviously a Living Waters thing. I did not make that up myself. But creation is evidence of a creator. It's impossible for nothing to create everything. So creation cannot just come up and magically create itself. That's scientifically impossible. And the science that these atheists cling so tightly to disproves this idea of nothing creating everything. And on top of this, again, the standard of morality. Many atheists, when you push them, will say that they don't believe in absolute standard until you push them on something like maybe abortion or racism or something like this, human trafficking, rape, otherwise. And they will say, well, those things are absolutely wrong. If those things are absolutely wrong, they have to be given by an absolute lawgiver, a morality giver. And that has to come from above you and me and Hitler, because if not, Hitler's not wrong for what he believes. Hitler just has a different view than you and me do. And hopefully you do not believe that Hitler just has a different view than you and me. Hopefully that you emphatically believe with every ounce of your being that Hitler was absolutely wrong under all circumstances, always. And this is a burden and a challenge that most atheists cannot make a claim to, a confident assertion to, as to their evidence to why they're an atheist. Most don't have it, and the ones that do have it still cannot answer the questions about creation and morality especially, as well as the fine-tuning argument. someone like Christopher Hitchens even admits that this is the most challenging statement that he has, to the point where he even made a tweet about it a while ago, and he ended up deleting it and recanting his statement because he was embarrassed by how many Christians saw it and saw as it was actually proof or more validation of a God existing. So if you're an atheist, I encourage you, challenge you to study these things, actually look into them with a humble heart and set your pride aside for a moment and actually genuinely look at what these things for what God says in his word. I'm happy to talk with you guys in a more private sense so that we can have a deeper conversation if you're interested. Appreciate you all. Love you all. If you're a Christian, you want to learn more about this stuff as well, click the link under this. It has totally free Christian resources that I've created.